Dames en heren, de $1 Million Man, Dibiase. Sir, it's an honor for us to have you here today at Dutch Pro.
I have two questions. The first one, how is it to be a WWE champion or a WWE wrestler? How is it to be?
What's it like?
Yes.
How's it feel?
Yes.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's what I love to do. I grew up in wrestling. My father, before me, was a wrestler. I grew up in a wrestling family. So to spend the time that I spent, you know, I'd been wrestling professionally for 12 years before I went to the WWF, and that was because wrestling. It's like I happened to be a part of the generation that was in the WWF when it exploded and just went everywhere. And so, you know, timing's everything. And so I was definitely at the right place at the right time, and it was great.
And your second question?
Where's your $1 Million championship?
The real belt, the belt that the company had made, which is actually a $40,000 belt. Now, it's probably worth more now. The stones in the belt are not diamonds, but cubic zirconium, which aren't cheap, and there's 700 stones times 40 or 50 bucks a piece. And so I had to, like when I came over to Europe, I had to carry a declaration page with me when I went through customs in case anybody wanted to know. They own the belt, the actual belt, and it's in the vault, in the safe, in the WWE headquarters. I do carry a replica with me that I take pictures with, but they didn't give me the real belt.
Too bad.
I did some coaching with Ted, you know, and for those of you who may not know, his contract with the WWE came to an end. Actually a couple of days ago, and they wanted him to resign, and he chose not to. And I'm actually pretty proud of that because you have to understand from a father's perspective, you know, I didn't want my boys to be wrestlers, not because I don't love wrestling, but all that comes along with it. The extreme demand it puts on you in terms of travel and being away from your family and all the trouble that comes with it. I wrote a book about it. And my dad, you know, my dad died in the ring, had a heart attack when he was 45 years old. He didn't want me to be a wrestler, and I basically grew up, and it came to a point in my career when I finally, you know, went out and visited my dad's grave, and I said, you know what, Dad, you were right, I get it now. So I don't want anybody to misunderstand that. You know, did I love what I did? Absolutely, I loved what I did in this ring. I loved entertaining people, and I always thought it was more fun to be a bad guy, to make people hate me than to love me, which is more fun. That's projecting a character other than who I really was. But the toll that it takes on the family is excessive. And I guess, you know, my son made me a grandfather 15 months ago. And yeah. I never thought in my wildest dream that I'd be happy about somebody calling me grandpa. You know? But I love it. And, you know, it's, you know, he sees that, you know, he got injured and he was off at the time that his son was born and the first, like, I think 3 months of his life, and then it was time for him to go back on the road. And he called me, and that's what he told me. He said, I don't want to hear those words. I said, what words? I told you so. And he said, but I'm finding this very hard to do. And, you know, just over the course of the next few months, I mean, he went back on the road. He actually went back. He was wrestling in live events. But the company didn't want to put him back on television and just throw him out there and abuse him. They were waiting for a time and the right angle and the right, you know, character to reintroduce him. But in the course of that time, he just decided that, you know, he said, I don't think this is my dream anymore. So, and actually, I'm very proud of that. I mean, he's great. I mean, all my contemporaries, all the guys that are there that produce the show now, Arn Anderson, Michael Hayes, Dean Malenko, all those guys will tell you that, you know, Ted Dibiase Jr. is one of the best wrestlers they've got, you know, in terms of his knowledge of what to do in here. So, You know, will he be back? That's entirely up to him. But he's got a lot of other things going right now.
But when he called you, he said, I'm not going to resign. Was that, I mean, leading up to the events, it wasn't a shock to you anymore?
No.
No, you saw it coming.
No, I pretty much saw it coming, and of course, you know, he's a bright kid. You know, he graduated from college with a degree in business administration before he even mentioned that he wanted to wrestle. So he's got a lot of things going, and so it's not like he was just sitting around waiting for them to do something with him. He was busy, you know, getting prepared to take the leap, and so again, very proud.
Good, good.
Wow. How do I prepare for a match? Well, here's the thing about wrestling today, wrestling 20 years ago. The art of wrestling, the real art of professional wrestling is improv. When I started wrestling, you know, there were, I guess, 14 regional territories all over the United States, and you could wrestle in a territory, and you know, you could travel 200 miles away, and those people never heard of you. It was kind of like that. And as you wrestled regionally, it was like a circuit. You would actually go back and wrestle the same towns on a weekly basis. And so you had to be creative, and you had to find and think about new ways of like, what can we do to get them back next week? And even though wrestling's always been show business, we presented it in a way where we tried as best we could to make it as believable as we possibly could. And over a period of time, you would develop a character, a style, and you got that from watching other people, and it's hard to explain, but you get a feel for, and you develop an ear for the crowd. And every crowd's different. Every crowd responds differently. Some crowds are much easier to get a rise out of them. Some we got to work harder for them. And all of those things I didn't know when I started, but I acquired those skills over a period of time. So the only thing that I knew when I climbed in a ring, I knew exactly how the match was going to end, because that is the most important thing. That's the finish. That's the hook to get you to come back next time. But everything else was improv. Everything else was, now there might be, you know, if I had a history with the guy I was working with, it's like when I turned bad guy. When I turned heel, the first time was with Junkyard Dog, Mid-South Wrestling, and I had been a babyface, a good guy there since my career started, and everybody knew we were friends, and, you know, we did the deal where, you know, we have this match, and it's, you know, the best guy's going to win, and we shake hands, and by the end of the match, I load a glove and knock him out, and everybody hates me. Well, I told him, I said, okay, look, the first time that you and I get in the ring, I said, when you walk out the dressing room door, you can't just stroll down to the ring smiling and shaking everybody's hand, because if this really happened, then you're going to be mad as hell. When you hit that door, you hit the door on a dead run, and when you slide in the ring, I'm gone. Because the best kind of bad guy is also he's also a coward. You know, it's like you never get tired of seeing a coward get his butt kicked. And so I developed a style. JBL was the cowboy version of my character. You know, the flamboyant guy with a lot of money, but you know, when anybody ever got in his face, he was like, you know, turn tail and running. Oh, somebody needs to kick his butt. But as far as preparing for a match, maybe bullet points in my head, but you know, sit down and diagram a match, rehearse a match, never, ever. Even interviews, you know, there were no scripted interviews. It was like you had an idea, you knew what the story was, and they'd say, okay, here's where we're going to be. This is the return match. This is what's happening. You know, I said, okay, 3, 2, 1, start talking. And it just, and that's something I think is missing today as well. Hope that answered the question.